Welcome back to the Pre-Vetted podcast, where we spotlight extraordinary people and remarkable talent reshaping our world. Today we're joined by Dr. Priyadarshi Panda, also known as Dr. Panda. He's the founder and CEO of International Battery Company, a lithium-ion product company building cutting-edge lithium-ion products with manufacturing at scale using physics and data engines. He's trained as a chemical engineer with a PhD from MIT and a bachelor's from IIT Kanpur. He has spent over 15 years moving from small molecules to complex, high-tech products with a deep background in particle materials and advanced manufacturing. He also worked at Intel, where he helped tackle chip problems at the 22 nanometer and 14 nanometer and 4 nanometer nodes, as well as advanced gate all-around technological critical for the AI era across roles at Intel, Lam Research, Applied Materials, and at IM3 New York. He has worked on some of the hardest problems at the intersection of materials, physics, and production focused on the battery industry. Now, at International Battery Company, he's channeling that journey into building better batteries and taking real leadership in the fight against climate change. Priyadarshi, Dr. Panda, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Federico. Super appreciated. Thanks for having me here. Once again, thanks for the generous, comments on the background. And yeah, super excited to be here and share what I've learned through my lifelong journey with the audience.
Amazing. So, what first drew you into chemical engineer? When did you realize you wanted to, and when did you realize you wanted to work on climate and energy problems?
Excellent question, Federico. So, my journey in chemical engineering started pretty early in my life, ever since I have consciousness of, thinking about what I wanted to do, doing engineering for, for people, like for applications, something that improves people's lives, was something that inspired me very early on in my childhood. And one of the spaces that truly builds products that impact people's life is through chemical engineering. Chemical engineering, has a part to play in, you name it, plastics, polymers, anything that, the jacket you wear, in pharmaceuticals to provide medicine to people, healthcare finds usage in very simple things, the packaging material that you use. And, through chemical engineering, you can make it environmental friendly, can be used in very complex things such as semiconductor chips, which you cannot even see the transitions with the naked eye. So the use case that chemical engineers participate in is very, very wide. And all of those applications have two things in common. A, they are product centric. They make real products that goes into, you can hold and feel and use. And B, they are used for the betterment of people's lives, or can be used for making our lives better, be it more convenient, be it safer, be it, environmentally friendly, etc., etc. So chemical engineering was something that I was convinced I want to do pretty early on in my childhood. Now, as a chemical engineer, through my training at IIT Kanpur and at MIT, my focus area was also based on my interest on application-based research of small molecules. Now, within that space, as I grew in the journey transitioning into semiconductors, one of the things, underlying themes that I started seeing was that there is a lot of focus as we build out products on energy. So energy is a very important theme. We have to optimize energy, we have to conserve energy, we have to produce energy in a renewable fashion, so that, it is green. So that energy focus grew during my research as well as during my work at Intel, Lam, and Applied. And parallelly, as the focus on energy grew, also came the thought process that, all this energy and the transition that is happening needs to happen in a sustainable manner. to make sure that, we don't impact the climate. And that is where, that chemical engineering journey evolved into a journey into fight against climate change through providing better solutions in the energy space. And that is what we do at IBC.
Amazing. Amazing. So, can you tell us a little bit more of what are you doing at IBC? IBC stands for International Battery Company, right? Um, can you describe for the listeners,
Sure, absolutely.
what you're doing there?
Absolutely, Federico. And I guess, I was preparing for that question in some ways. That's why I brought up IBC towards the end of that answer of the previous question. But International Battery Company, IBC, as the name suggests, we play in the battery space, primarily in the lithium-ion batteries, which are an important component of transition from non-renewable to renewable energy. There is two different aspects that lithium-ion cells are used in. One is in mobility, as we transition sustainably and smartly away from fossil fuels, which are non-renewable and climate impacting sources of energy for mobility. And the storage space, as we transition from coal into more renewable sources such as solar, wind, water, hydro, we need to have some kind of storage so that we can use that energy at the right time without wastage of the energy we are producing, the renewably. And that is where battery storage comes into play. And both of this mobility transition as well as storage to renewable energy, both of them require batteries. An international battery company, we do things in the battery space. And then, of course, we are international. So, we are a truly global company. We connect the dots between multiple different geographies. We are Silicon Valley, heart of Silicon Valley. We are in the, Milpitas Mountain View area. And we are Delaware Incorporated. So, US is a strong presence for us. We are very focused on, kind of the thought leadership that is needed, which, US drives quite a bit, in terms of new areas. And Tesla came from the US. And then we actively participate in the Asian ecosystem with a facility that we run in South Korea. It's a 50 megawatt hour, 35,000 square feet facility where we build the proof of concept and we build the science. We call it a ramp facility. And then we also have presence right now in India, where we are deploying commercially some of the solutions. Now, the main question is, what is the solution we are building? So we play in the entire lithium-ion supply chain space. We have three verticals. One is on the critical battery material space. So we innovate on the anode and cathode materials as well as separator and electrolyte. We do that either through direct collaboration with some of our strategic investors and partners, or through just suppliers by actively working with the suppliers. A big underlying theme there is to provide a completely fair playing field for innovators globally. And that is where we do not like currently the concentration of the knowledge and materials that is present in China today. So we work predominantly in a ex-China, non-Chinese supply chain space, which gives opportunities to US, Mexican, Canadian, European, Middle Eastern, Indian, South Korean, Japanese, Thai, Singapore innovators to be able to truly build something in the material space which can be adopted in a product. And that adoption in product is the second and third vertical. So what we do in addition to playing in the material space by enabling that material space in an FEOC compliant, ex-China compliant manner, we also take those materials and build devices, which a lot of people also say is electrochemistry. And these drop-in devices are fundamentally the heart and soul of a battery. They contain of four components: a cathode electrode, an anode electrode, a separator, and electrolyte. And that combination can be dropped into any housing. It can be a cylindrical housing, pouch housing, prismatic housing, can be any form factor, can be any size. And when it gets dropped into a certain housing or casing, it becomes a product. But as a device or electrochemistry itself, it can be used by Tesla, can be used by Panasonic, LG, Samsung, SK, BMW, Porsche, you name it, Tata's, Agratas, Excites of the world. They can be used by multiple players as a drop-in device or electrochemistry, which can be fit into the large manufacturing lines that a lot of people have already set up. So we provide these drop-in device solutions. And the last part of what we do is we take this drop-in device solution and make our product. So we actually are a prismatic product or form factor focused company. 80% of the world is prismatic or moving towards prismatic. So there are three form factors: cylindrical, pouch, prismatic. But prismatic is what, the world is now, kind of very slowly but surely moving towards. And hence we choose prismatic casing as our product. And we take these devices, which is our second vertical, and put it in a prismatic casing to make working products, which are now being sold commercially in India. And we are also beginning to work very closely with a customer in the US to bring this product to the market in the US after India. US is our second market. So that is not quite so much in a nutshell, but because such a complicated space, but three verticals that we play in. But in a nutshell, we play in the entire lithium-ion supply chain space from molecule to working products. And in that sense, we are very uniquely positioned. Nobody else does what International Battery Company does. So truly a disruptor in the lithium-ion space.
Amazing. So when we think about batteries as on the use from the user standpoint, we usually think that all batteries are the same, right? And probably this comes from the ignorance of not knowing the specifics, right? But what you're describing is that there's such a plethora of information, knowledge, and innovation happening within the battery manufacturing process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is a very rich space, Federico. You have hit it, on the nail on the head.
Right. Right. And you were talking about the prismatic, the cylindrical. You mentioned another shape. Is that the way that you organize the cathode and the anode within the battery?
That is absolutely correct, Federico.
Yeah,
But
you're
that's
doing
right,
great.
Federico. You are absolutely correct. So the form factor that I was talking about, pouch is the third one basically. So what it does is you take the device and you can make a product which is dependent on your use case. For example, when you look at your laptop or you look at electronics products, they use pouch cells. So if you open your laptop, you will see this flimsy little aluminum, jelly kind of thing, which actually houses the electrodes, as you mentioned, the cathode and anode or the device. And it's also called the jelly roll. So you take that cathode anode separator jelly roll device, as you were mentioning, and you put it in the pouch and it goes in your laptop because that is the way it fits into the end product. Similarly, you can do cylindrical cells when there is space constraint because cylindrical cells are really small.
Right.
So for example, when you look at your AA batteries for your remote control for your TV, the space is very small, so it needs to be small cylindrical. Similarly, when you start looking at very large installations, for example, in mobility, when you look at a bus, it has a very large battery pack. It requires a lot of energy to drive a bus. Or when you look at solar stations, when you set up these solar power stations, you have to build very, very large container sized, they look like, entire containers that you have in ships, right? 20 feet, 40 feet containers. That is the size of the battery pack that needs to connect to a solar field to be able to store all that solar energy you're generating. So for that, you need very, very large batteries. Otherwise, if you just use these tiny cylindrical batteries, there will be millions and millions of batteries, which becomes hard to manage. So that's why you use very, very large prismatic batteries. But end of the day, the electrode, as you mentioned, or the jelly roll or the heart remains the same. It just gets morphed into different form factors based on the end usage.
Right. So it's the shape. It's a function of the space you have available, or does it have significant performance improvements?
So the shape has two connotations to it, Federico. One is it depends on the space available for the end solution, definitely. But beyond that, it has two other things. One is the complexity or simplicity of the battery pack you're building. So if you want to simplify the battery pack, you want to use less number of units, and that's where you go to larger prismatic cells. So that is one of the other underlying factors that determines the usage. Last but not the least is also, as you said, performance. When you have very high discharge rates, then a certain architecture like cylindrical, especially if it is a cylindrical where you have a nickel tab, so it's called a tabbed design, not a tabless design, that becomes hard to use in high discharge use cases because you are drawing a lot of current, so you're generating too much heat if your tab has a active connection. So there's something called a contact resistance. So current into resistance, I square R is the heat. I don't want to get in the science too much, but big picture, if you have very large current draws, you would want to have low resistance. And for that, a tabless design, which is something that pouch or prismatic uses, is much more beneficial than a standard tabbed design cylindrical cell. So also from a performance perspective, what is the end usage specification of performance? That also is a determining factor as to what kind of shape and form factor or housing or casing to use.
Right, I see. And then the other issue that you mentioned is heat, right? When you have charge and discharge, I think it's when you charge it, you have heat, right? That you have to dissipate. So the form factor can also affect how the heat is dissipated, right?
Exactly correct. So the localization hotspots, when you charge or discharge, both cases, Federico, you will generate heat because current is moving, and as current moves, you generate heat. So during the charge discharge process, when you generate the heat, you have to dissipate the heat. So those considerations also are important in making the decision as to what form factor, what kind of housing or casing to use. So yes, a lot of science beyond, that is used to bring a product to life.
Right, right. Amazing. And people that are struggling with these challenges, they can reach out to you to help them figure out all the hurdles and challenges related to that.
Absolutely. No, we are also very, very interested, Federico, in enabling the space. As I mentioned, we want to provide a fair, equal playing field to the innovators all around. So we work very closely with startups and companies in the material space in the US, and happy to, extend that globally. We do work with a few players in Europe as well. But when the material players are innovating and building amazing materials, moving that material from an isolated material to a device and product is something IBC can help and enable for the ecosystem. So any mad scientists out there, happy to chat with them and help them in the journey.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's a very niche market, but it's very critical because what you're doing is providing the support for I already said plethora, but a plethora of products that could be created thanks to your support, right?
Sure. No, absolutely. And that is where, we do believe we are a disruptor because of, the range of products, the plethora of products, as you mentioned, Federico. That is something that is unique to IBC. Not a lot of people in the world can do that. And our, willingness to build those plethora of products with a startup innovation based backbone is also something that nobody in the world does today other than International Battery Company.
Right, right. You also mentioned the idea of diversify the manufacturing of battery products outside of China, right? Can you tell us a bit more about what are the challenges for that, and how are you supporting that transition? You mentioned you have a South Korea facility, right? Um, how do you help? What are the challenges that you see happening in the industry, and how are you helping to make that transition?
Sure. No, that's a great question, Federico. So, the beauty of how China does it, you call it the beauty or the ugliness of how China does it. You take your pick. But I will say the beauty of how China does it is an integrated system. So, the material maker in China always has a way to work with a product or a device maker. And those product device makers are very exclusively working with Chinese material providers because they are mandated to do that. And what that does, it provides a customer source, a source for revenue, a source for capital for all these innovators in the material space to truly prosper because they know that the device maker, the end customer, the end battery maker, like a CATL, will definitely buy materials from them. That is a big challenge for the innovators globally outside of China because they innovate amazing materials. But how do they get that material from lab to fab, as we used to say at Intel, laboratory to fabrication to large scale manufacturing? That adoption pathway, that pathway from molecule to demonstrating that it is a working product, nobody is willing to support these startups in that journey. And when you don't have that support, your ideas and innovations get stuck in the lab. They never see the light of day in a commercial manner because you don't have the support from the end device and product makers to truly help you scale and truly give you validation, which will lead to funding for you to continue in your journey of innovation and scale. We are solving that problem. Today, we work with multiple startups where we are taking amazing technology and morphing it into device and product through our facility in South Korea and doing one better by showing that it works in the field in India. So we are going from that lab journey to validation journey. We are enabling that so that they can then go to their investor base and the community to raise additional funding for scaling and commercially becoming viable. The other thing that we are doing, Federico, is that the ecosystem has become lazy. People have been, okay, I can find cheap solutions from China, let's just use it. And that is where, if we continue on that journey, 10 years later, we will be having this exactly same conversation, only worse, that there are no builders left in this space globally because nobody can compete with China. China has built a beautiful / ugly infrastructure in the space. That is where, Federico, truly focusing on ex-China supply chain, truly working together with established players to bring scaled solutions at the device and product level, which only International Battery Company can do, which enables large companies to be invested and invest more money into building out large facilities outside China, and encouraging startups by holding their hands in the journey from laboratory to validation at a fabrication or larger facility scale so that they can get adequate market recognition and funding and support to truly bring their innovations to commercialization. Those are the ways in which we are disrupting the space and truly trying to provide a fair working field, fair playing field to everyone out there who wants to, who is ingenious, who is building something amazing. Yeah. We want to motivate those people and we are doing that.
Right. Yeah, I think that the manufacturing capacities of China is something interesting. You mentioned it's beautiful / ugly, right? I think that the achievement of building such a big manufacturing capacity and becoming the cheapest option available, it's commendable. But then on the other hand, that puts all of the companies that are using their products depend on China, and then that dependency becomes an issue, right? So I can see the reason to or the motivation to decide to diversify to outside of China. One of the things that I believe is in this idea of building companies that are profitable but also have a social mission, right? Where the profits is part of what we need to do, but it's not it's the means, not the end, right?
Exactly.
The end is a social mission, right? Social impact mission.
Exactly. And that is where, when we talk about climate tech, clean tech, Federico, it is not driven by profits. It is driven by a larger, greater good of mankind philosophy, saving, planet Earth. And when that is the underlying theme and you are building solutions in that space, you know, drowning in the sole purpose of corporate profits, and hence enabling China. China, as you said, builds at scale, but they also have unfair business practices because the government supports them with huge grants, huge, money that doesn't have to be paid back. Similarly, the banking system enables very low interest loans in China at 1%, half percent, like ridiculous numbers, which are not due for 5-6 years. So you get long-term moratorium on your loan. So you get large amounts of capital from the banks. It's their mission to give capital to builders at very, very low interest rates without the principal being due back for 5-6 years. And that banking system is amazing because even when you look at people, when they put the money in the banks in China, they are receiving 0.5%, 1% interest, and nobody cares basically. The government just owns your money. But then the government gets to use that money to enable entrepreneurs at price points where global entrepreneurs or global companies cannot exist and function at. So that is an ecosystem which is unfair in a global context from a business perspective. So the least we can do, Federico, is okay, that is happening good, but we encourage the global scenario so that, as you said, we are not drowned by profits in this bigger mission. This bigger mission will succeed if everyone globally can participate. Everyone globally can have a chance, a fighting chance to succeed. Everyone globally can build something as opposed to driving cheap over dependence on China. So that is the thinking, that how do we enable people, yeah, in this large mission? Because end of the day, climate change environment is not only a China specific problem, it is a global problem which we collectively have to join hands and contribute to bettering the life quality of mankind.
Right. How 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 do you think that the industry could? What are the most significant changes you think the industry should do um, to have a significant impact on climate change, on the lithium-ion manufacturing?
So, but I do believe, Federico, that in the climate change, fight against climate, as you said, profit cannot be the motivator. So we need philanthropists, we need people, good-hearted people who truly care about the climate and don't just, make it a political talking point or a talking point on social media, who truly believe, right? There are people who are, owners of trillion-dollar companies right now. Amazing what AI has done. Those people with billions and billions of dollars in their pockets should actively fund startups and innovators in the climate space without any expectations of making profit. Think of it as a grant. Think of it as a goodness, right? You have been given too much. You are paying it back to the to the community, to Mother Earth, by encouraging funding in the climate space with zero ROI expectations. That will enable innovators, true innovators, to be able to build amazing solutions at a faster clip and being able to commercialize it in the climate space. The other thing that, Federico, will help is if we mandate, multiple, you know, nations mandate that a certain percentage, doesn't have to be 100%, but at least 70 or 80% usage will be ex-China. That will also be encouraging to people outside of China to truly, not lose the, motivation or lose the, the fight before the fight has even begun, right? The fight should truly be based on innovation, truly be based on capability, and not disproportionate amount of funding or disproportionate amount of usage opportunities that exist in China versus the rest of the world. So I think decoupling from China, truly funding without an ROI, return, on your investment expectation, truly philanthropic based funding of startups in the energy space, enabling clean energy to fight climate change would be super amazing, yeah, for the community and ecosystem.
Right. I mean, this reminds me of probably this is a little bit on the sidetrack, but this reminds me of people were talking that in the 60s, all of the innovation was government funded, right? And that, I mean, we can criticize the inefficiency of government, but one of the things that benefits that provided is that they could spend a lot of resources on one idea, and they were able to build the atomic bomb and so many other developments throughout that era, right? Again, in the human history, most of the innovation has been driven by war, right? But and I think that your message of building innovation based on the motivation of climate change, I think it's great. Anyway, that happened in the 60s, and then throughout the years, now most of the innovation happens on the private sector, right? And the private sector has a limited amount of resources compared to government, right? And it's there are a lot of small fractions of teams trying to figure out how to innovate, right? So it's more of a struggle, right? What I'm trying to go with this is that um, I believe that the role you're doing on supporting innovators is this idea of giving them the support as when the government gave in the 60s to innovators, right? And I think that's going to be a game changer. Yeah.
Yep, no, to provide them a platform, right? To provide them with hope. So I think that, at IBC, we provide hope to the innovators, to the disruptors, to the mad scientists, to people to, not shy away from the fight, and that is that's an important mission for us, yeah, to help people to truly bring great solutions for the usage of mankind, yeah.
Right. Another question that I was thinking of asking you is, what are your thoughts? You mentioned lithium ion, right? But what are your thoughts on this other battery chemistry, lithium iron phosphate? Um, what do you think are the benefits of using lithium ion? Why are you choosing lithium ion as the base of your platform and research?
Yep. So the one of the important driving factors in terms of how we built IBC, Federico, coming from a very long history of manufacturing excellence, be it at Intel, be it at Lam, Applied. There's always the desire to not only build the solution but to build a scalable solution. And that is where, when we design the device and product, we also want to make sure that it can be built at scale. The supply chain is well established. The fundamental physics at scale is well understood. And that is where lithium ion is the most mature. So it can make an impact today. Other technologies like sodium ion, aluminum, iron people are trying to do right now, zinc, iron, multiple kinds of, zinc air batteries, iron air batteries, hydrogen fuel. These are technologies that are evolving, but there is no clarity of at scale adoption. Lithium ion is the space that is well understood, be it lithium iron phosphate, LFP, be it lithium nickel manganese cobalt oxide, which is NMC chemistry on the cathode side, be it, graphite on the anode side, be it silicon graphite on the anode side, be it pure lithium on the, anode side to make it a solid state battery with, solid electrolyte. So the different iterations around the lithium being the mode of transport between anode to cathode and cathode to anode, that is mature and ready to make impact today for scaled deployment. So we do keep an eye out for other alternative technologies, but where we feel like we can continuously make immediate impact. is in the lithium ion, through the lithium ion, focusing on the lithium ion fundamentals. And that is where a lot of the innovation work, scale up, deployment, building conviction, proof of point happens around lithium for us at IBC. Not to say that, we do not have our eyes squarely on sodium based or, aluminum ion or zinc air, iron air batteries, etc., etc. But lithium definitely is something that we focus on more aggressively.
Right, right. I saw those a lot of companies making promises, but then 10 years later they're still on the lab stage. They haven't been able to make it to a, you know, uh, to make it a reality on the manufacturing side, right?
That's right. No, Federico, that's right. It's so easy to sometimes get things done on the lab scale. But then, to truly commercialize it, that is where, I do believe there is a gap in the industry. And for that, to be able to be truly commercial ready, there's two things. A, from the get-go, you have to have a clear understanding as to the path from R&D to commercialization. A lot of people get enamored by research and development. They do not think deeply enough as to, is this manufacturable at scale? We call it designed for high speed manufacturing or designed for high volume manufacturing. So for us, anytime we build something, anytime we build the device, we think about scaled manufacturing. We build the product, we think about the fundamentals of how this can be manufactured at scale. And if you don't think of that on day one when you design the product, then you run into these challenges, and 10 years later you are still an R&D company. And that is both experience, enablement, team that ties back into the thinking. And at IBC, some of the people that we have, Kunal Jain, Josh Presley, Sasi Kopanagari, our founding executives, and then Ramesh Singh, Santi, all of these people come with 15 plus years of experience. That's the minimum. I know some people have 30 years of experience in the industry of truly building high-tech product companies, truly having scaled, truly having walked that journey from, as we say, conceptualization to productization, basically. So a scaled manufacturing. So that experience enables us to make the right decisions, and that that valley of death when you haven't thought about scaled manufacturing, that has been the peril of a lot of startups and will continue to be if the right approach and mindset is not brought into the startup mentality, founder mentality. Yeah.
Right, right. Um, can you share us one success story of one of your clients or one of your projects that you were involved?
Sure. No, that's a great question, Federico. So I'll give a little bit context behind this. So when we designed our first product, Federico, this was in 2022. It's called Prabalthausen. It's a prismatic product, and the underlying device is a mid nickel with graphite with the optimized electrolyte for cycle life. So that's where our patent is around. How do you get very high cycle life, which is how do you get very high usage, how do you get very large lifetime for the cell. And that was done based on something we call a scorecard analysis. So we went on and we talked to the customers in the two-wheeler segment in India. And the two-wheeler segment is very unique because there is no support that you can give the batteries at the pack level, because the packs are very small. They have to fit into a very small device, two-wheeler. You cannot do, as you said, heat dissipation through advanced cooling that Tesla does in their large battery packs, which they use in the Tesla car. So the cell in itself, the battery cell, had to be designed such that it can dissipate heat by itself and is not impacted by the fact that the battery pack cannot have external cooling methods. So that is where, we did a scorecard analysis. We looked at what really matters to the two-wheeler customers, what are the current offerings, and we realized that there is two things that they care for a lot. One is they truly want to give warranty or cycle life. So that's why our focus was on cycle life. Second, basically, was that they want to get cells product that is repeatable. so that they don't have to do cell balancing. The cells they were getting, product they were getting was very large distribution. So they had to do cell sorting, they had to do a lot of scrapping, almost 20% scraps, to be able to then cherry pick the batteries that can be used in the battery pack in the end solution. So for us, that was the challenge. And this is another aspect of how do you build a successful company, is you look at what is the need of the customers. You don't just you don't just imagine, drink your own Kool-Aid that this is what I'm building is amazing and I'm just going to build it. No, you go get the voice of customer. Based on voice of customer, you address the gaps in the current solutions they have, and based on that you design and build the product, which we did with Prabalthausen. And in record time, within 6 months, we went from concept to actually having a factory that produces that. And within 9 months, we had that cell certified and in India. And within 12 months, we had battery packs made, getting field tested. And within less than 18 months, we had commercial sales. Now, typically in the battery space, Federico, as you said, sometimes people take 10 years and do not scale anything. Sometimes people take 5 years, do not scale anything. The minimum time that it takes to build any product, forget about scale, forget about commercialization, is 2.5 to 3 years. So that 3-year journey we were able to do in 6 months. People take 5 years to commercialize products. We were able to do in 18 months, less than 18 months. And that is because we followed three things. One, we got the voice of customer and actually built something that is useful for the customer. Two, we made sure that whatever we are building can be built at scale, because the customer doesn't want one or two solutions. They need thousands and thousands of solutions. Third, we also made sure that we have data analytics to prove that what we were envisioning in the product design, the problems we were actually thinking we are solving in product design, is actually materializing in the field through advanced AI and analytics on the field. So we have built the most sophisticated battery passport around our cells in battery packs. And today we have sold over 1,200 battery packs commercially
Oh,
on the
wow.
field in India. So you have over 1,200 two-wheelers running around cities in Bangalore, Hyderabad, Delhi, and Bhubaneswar in India, which has the IBC battery pack. So if you open the bonnet under the seat, you will actually see in the chassis IBC battery packs with IPC cells that we are making in Korea today. So that journey basically demonstrates two things, Federico. One is you can succeed. Two, you can succeed in record time if you truly understand scaled manufacturing and truly understand product design and truly solve a problem for the customers, as opposed to trying to force fit what you believe is an amazing solution and getting customers to try to adopt, which inevitably leads in failure, where the customer says, I don't want it. And then you have something called an offtake or sales problem. So that is where I think that again, the team's experience, the team's expertise, and the team's desire to truly build something valuable. Value creation versus valuation. We have never, tried to get valuation. We had always thought about value. What value am I creating? Am I creating something useful? And thinking hard and deep with the right set of people, with the right experiences, is which has enabled us to pretty much do whatever we have done in record time, and hopefully we will continue to build more tangibles on the field in record time.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, I've seen companies, or founders, executive teams thinking about the company valuation, but they forget about the user, right, in the process.
Yeah.
Um,
And value,
yeah.
Drives valuation, Federico. Trust me, the markets are, unfair, but to people who create value, they are fair. They will reward you because you become that disruptor, right? Like example in the semiconductor space, ARM. ARM built IP across the board for multiple end users in a global scenario. And we at IBC in the battery space are replicating the asset light IP based molecule to device to scalable product IP availability to the world, basically. So in a ex-China supply chain environment. So every molecule that we use is ex-China. all the device IP and the product IP uses components that are ex-China, are FEOC, Federal Entity of Concern compliant, and we are providing this full usable set basically to the entire world, whoever wants to use it as, IP.
Right. Right. That's amazing. I mean, I haven't thought about before knowing you the problematic of being able to customize batteries for specific use cases and how much of an impact that can have
Yep.
on the products. When you talk about products, you talk about the batteries. When I'm thinking on products, I'm thinking about, in this case, the two-wheel bicycles, motorcycles, I don't know what it is, but
Two-wheelers. We just call it two-wheelers. It can be a
two-wheelers, yes.
e-bike, can be an e-motorcycle, can be an e-scooter, but a two-wheeler, it has two wheels. So yeah.
Right. That line has been blurred since e-bikes show up. Yeah, it's a bicycle, it's a motorcycle, it's something in between. Yeah.
Yep.
And I think that's amazing because there are so many use cases where being able to work towards the battery, customize the battery to specific needs, can have a significant impact on the people.
It also, I want this message to go out, Federico, that if you bring the right thinking, the right attitude, the right team, then, you can be successful. I want that message to go to, entrepreneurs, budding entrepreneurs, innovators, all the ecosystem participants in this space, that with the right thinking, right strategy, right kind of attitude, and the attitude of a builder and operator truly trying to build tangibles and solve problems, you can build success stories in this highly rewarding space, once in a generation kind of space, right? Energy is going to impact the way every person lives in the world for hundreds and hundreds of years, right? It's going to morph, it's going to redefine how people, behave, interact, anything from like cars, from like renewable energy, aviation, eVTOLs, humanoid robots, defense systems, drones, everything is impacted by this tiny little device which is called a battery. So and renewable batteries are the best. Yeah.
Right. That's amazing. Yes, I agree. And you providing a platform for innovators to be able to build solutions that otherwise couldn't on their own. I think that's amazing.
Yep. No, and that's why I shout out to everyone out there who's looking for a platform to transition from a lab scale to a commercializable, productizable solution. Happy to chat with them. Our website is ibcbat.com. So there's an email address to, send emails to, which goes to our executive team. So please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. Yeah, happy to support the ecosystem.
So we're almost running out of time, so I'll try to make a few last questions so we can wrap it up on time. But what advice would you give to young engineers who want to work in climate hardware?
Sure. So again, a topic that's close to my heart, basically. One of the things I would mention is, be fearless. It is a very rewarding space, but you need to have conviction, and there's no substitute for hard work. So go out there, be fearless, understand deeply what you're trying to build, get advice, find mentors, talk to people, but not every advice needs to be followed. So look at all the advices that you're getting from the ecosystem with low ego. Don't have too much ego. Yeah, don't feel entitled. And then among those advices, think deep, discuss with your team, and adopt the advices that work best to make your company successful, to bring something tangible. The other advice I will say is do not change valuation, do not chase valuation. Just focus on value creation. Just focus on what is your mission. Are you taking the right steps to bring that mission to life, basically to fruition? And all of that comes with a very strong mind. So you have to have a strong mind and hustle through this. Yeah, don't give up.
Amazing, amazing. So, one last question that I love cars, so I have this question, kind of in my mind is when do you think when do you think we're going to be able to achieve energy density similar to petrol? Is that something you see that something happening soon, or what are
Sure.
your thoughts on that?
Sure. Actually, because you said you're a car enthusiast, I was actually expecting a different question. When do you see that, we'll be able to accelerate very, very fast, basically, which EVs actually do better than, ICE engine cars or the petrol cars, which are called ICE engine. EVs can accelerate faster because of, better response time. You don't have a combustion engine to, burn the
Right,
petrol. But the answer to both the questions, when can we, meet the mileage or get the distance from electric cars, as well as can I accelerate even faster, is through silicon anode. So we have a product called Prabal 3000. In the Prabal 3000 product, we have two variants of the prismatic form factor. One is a thin prismatic single jelly roll, and one is a little bit thicker prismatic two jelly roll design. Both of those use high nickel on the cathode side and silicon anode on the anode side, silicon graphite blend. Now, what that enables is two things. One is higher energy density by about 30 to 40%, which means that from standard cells, which means that your Tesla, which is giving a 350 mile, will be able to give you almost 40% higher, which is almost 500 miles plus. So that is, where you start hitting the 500, 550 mile, which is what, a large SUV, with a 20-gallon tank will give you basically in the US, 550
right.
miles. So once you start, putting those 40% higher energy density cells, you will be able to get to 500 plus miles. That becomes very competitive. In addition, the silicon allows the lithium to move out faster, more efficiently. So you can, instead of a 2C, 3C discharge, you can do a 6 to 8C discharge easily. When you do that 6 to 8C discharge, it means straight out of the bat, when you're accelerating, you will zoom out, from the blocks very, very fast. So Prabal 3000 and 3100 prismatic high nickel silicon based cells that we have developed at IBC can solve one problem that you asked for, which is the mile. How can you get the large mile? But also can solve the other problem, which is, how can you accelerate faster and faster? So, yep.
I I haven't thought about accelerating faster, but yes, I
But because
agree.
you said you're a car enthusiast and a lot of people like that drive, that power, of course, you will not get the noise of the ICE engine, that, engine kind of, kicking off, that petrol, blasting in the engine. But you definitely will get the speed, you will feel it with the high C discharge from silicon based high nickel lithium cells.
Right, right. I think that that's great. I mean, I think that one of the well, there are a few uh, reasons that is my personal opinion, right? Why I currently stay with ICE cars or vehicles is because of the simplicity that I can work myself. But the products that I've seen on the market, electric vehicles, they are built in a way that are designed to take to the dealership. They're black boxes that you cannot you cannot do DIY maintenance, right? So that's mostly the reason. And then the range, and that's why I ask about the energy density, right? That those are the big two. And particularly, as I mentioned, I did a 2,000 miles trip, right? With an current electric and current charging stations is very limiting, right?
Yep,
Um,
absolutely. Yep. And
yeah.
that's where, Enrico, if you look at ICE engines, it took
Right.
100 years to build the ecosystem, you know.
Yes.
And when ICE engines were started, people didn't used to like, they used to go to mechanics. They didn't used to take the, you know, things in their own hands, because the knowledge of how to deal with an ICE engine didn't exist, or it took time to proliferate. But now, 100 years later, people can become self mechanics. Similarly, in the electric vehicle space, as you rightly mentioned, Federico, energy density and mileage will happen. Charging infrastructure will build out. You know, right now you can't find chargers at the same frequency that you have a petrol pump, but that will build out over time. You know, it will take 10 years to truly be competitive with ICE, you know, in terms of infrastructure. And last but not the least, you know, as you know, you go to second generation, third generation of electric cars, people will start taking matters in their own hands and start dabbling. The knowledge will spread, and you know, so I anticipate in the, you know, by 2040, we will be doing all the good things that you're mentioning, that we have been doing with ICE engines with electric cars as well. Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that because my thinking is I've done swap engines of ICE engines, right, on vehicles, and I'm hoping to get to a point where we can do just replace the V8 and just put a package that has the power, the batteries, because that would be better, right, on performance. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to that time. Yeah.
Likewise, no, you know, we are living in a very exciting world, Federico, for sure. There is so much that has been done, but it has created the platform for something, you know, much, much larger to be done over the next, you know, 30, 40, 50 years. So we are just scratching the surface of this, you know, energy transition, energy revolution, and a lot more to be done. Yeah. And IBC is super
Yes.
well positioned in that space. So we are looking forward to the next, you know, 2, 5, and beyond 10, 15 years.
Right, right. That's amazing. I will ask every once in a while, are we there yet? Are we there yet?
And I hope the answer is going to be yes, we are making, you know, strides and moving forward by leaps and bounds. Yeah. That's our
Yes,
objective. You
yes.
know, we're execution focused, execution based, and execution value creation through tangible product build will always be priority for us.
Amazing, amazing. So thank you very much for joining us today. It was a very enlightening conversation, and I'm looking forward what what you and your team build next.
Thank you, Federico. No, likewise, and thanks for, you know, adding to, you know, the answers and questions with your real life experiences that made this conversation much more entertaining. So super appreciated for that, and hope the audience appreciates this, and uh, you know, gets this is informative for everyone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.